Heaped praise on the Obama administration for agreeing to resettle some of the hundreds of refugees on Nauru and Manus Island, easing what's been a headache for his government as it struggled to find third countries prepared to accept them.
It is a one-off agreement. It will not be repeated. It is only available to those currently in the regional processing centres. It will not be available to any persons who seek to reach Australia in the future.
The Prime Minister would not say how many people with refugee status would be resettled in the United States, nor whether he expected the deal to survive Donald Trump's inauguration as US President in January. He attacked Labor for opposing his legislation for a lifetime ban on asylum seekers on Manus and Nauru ever visiting Australia. But interestingly, the US deal does not depend on that bill passing the Senate. That's a matter of great relief for Bill Shorten, who was quick to back the deal.
Labor would be hypocritical if we didn't welcome this, because this is the very thing we wanted with the Malaysia solution some years ago. It has taken the current government 3+ years to negotiate this one-off deal, but we are pleased if it means an end to indefinite detention, especially for genuine refugees, and they get the opportunity to be regionally resettled, because after all, Labor and Liberal are on a unity ticket to defeat the people smugglers, and we will work with the government as they talk to us and subsequently brief us on the detail.
A very different story from the Greens.
We have to make sure now that no one is left behind on Manus Island and Nauru, and that is the critical issue here, and it's the issue that neither Mr Turnbull nor Mr Dutton was able to give reassurances on today.
The government's clearly worried that people smugglers will tell people stranded in countries like Indonesia that this is a pathway to the United States, and therefore is enhancing Operation Sovereign Borders with more ships and planes, as well as talks with Indonesia to ensure their authorities do not let boats leave their ports heading for Australia.
To the people smugglers, my message is simple. We have reinforced our offshore law enforcement and intelligence cooperation, and we have deployed more ships and more aircraft. We will not let you restart your illicit trade. Your boats will be intercepted and they will be returned safely.
For years, governments of both stripes have tried to find acceptable third countries to resettle the asylum seekers who've been holed up on Nauru and Manus for years. Now, at long last, a breakthrough, and a big one at that. Jim Middleton, Sky News.
Race to resettle refugees in U.S. before deal is overturned by President-elect Donald Trump. Border protection boosted ahead of U.S. refugee deal. Turnbull and Obama government officials are racing to begin resettling refugees in the United States before the incoming Trump administration can halt the deal between the two countries. Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull has ordered the biggest peacetime border protection operation in Australian history to deter people smugglers after the US agreed to accept refugees currently held on Nauru and Manus Island. The agreement will see women, children, family groups and other vulnerable refugees assessed for residency in the United States. U.S. Homeland Security officials are expected to arrive in Australia within days to begin arranging health and security checks. Mr. Turnbull yesterday publicly thanked President Barack Obama for agreeing to the one-off deal, but was unable to say if incoming President Donald Trump would honor the agreement after he was sworn in on January 20th. Mr. Trump has previously called for a temporary ban on Muslim immigration to the U.S., and many of the 1,145 asylum seekers on Nauru and 958 on Manus are Muslims. Asylum seekers behind a fence at the Manus Island Detention Center, Papua New Guinea, in 2014. Picture, AAP/Eoin Blackwell. We deal with one administration at a time, Mr. Turnbull said. We have a very long history of cooperation with the United States in which we have been able to, as we are here, we have been able to support our mutual and respective humanitarian objectives. The one-off deal will only apply to people already on Nauru or Monus who have been processed by the United Nations High Commission for Refugees and deemed to be genuine refugees. Australian authorities are concerned the announcement could be used as a marketing opportunity by people smugglers. The Australian Defence Force and Border Force have been preparing for the announcement for several months, and additional ships and AP-3C Orion surveillance aircraft have been deployed to detect people smuggler boats. Any people smuggling boats that attempt to reach Australia will be intercepted and turned back, Mr. Turnbull said. The federal government plans to close the Manus Island processing facility, but will keep the Nauru Centre open indefinitely. It will continue to encourage asylum seekers deemed not to be refugees to return to their home countries. Opposition leader Bill Shorten yesterday offered qualified support for the agreement. It has taken the current government 3+ years to negotiate this one-off deal, but we are pleased if it means an end to indefinite detention, especially for genuine refugees, and they get the opportunity to be regionally resettled, Mr. Shorten said. The federal government is continuing to negotiate with other countries which could potentially take some of the asylum seekers denied entry to Australia. In September, Australia agreed to support a US-led Central American refugee resettlement plan by accepting Hondurans and El Salvadoran refugees from a camp in Costa Rica. Originally published as Race to Resettle Refugees in US Before Deal is Trumped,